On Friday, we saw the VIX burn down and finally shipped over to red. It printed a big bearish engulfing candle, and we saw stocks start to bounce. The question is, will that continue into this brand new week of October? We only have 2 left. Find out all of that and more in today's Courage Pays Better Than Fear Trading Stock Market Review and Preview for the week of October 20th.
Tick by tick, the rhythm's wild.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy Ritz here. Courage Pays Better Than Fear Trading. I am back after being sick as a dog, and I'm super grateful to be here with all of you to talk about the week coming up in the markets, October 20th through 24th. And it's promising to be a big one because we are finally going to get some data on Friday. Despite the government shutdown, we're going to get an inflation report. We'll talk about that here in a second. And more importantly, Tuesday, Netflix is going to report earnings at close. And then the next day, Tesla is going to report. So we're going to see impacts on the broader markets as these companies report. So with that said, let's jump into the data. All right, guys, so I want to start just by going over the data that we are going to get this week. And we're just going to come right over to Friday because that's when we are going to get CPI. Now, remember, the government has been shut down for quite some time. There are some people who are saying this is going to be a record duration government shutdown, but we're still going to get CPI this Friday. It's been delayed. And as you guys know, inflation reports drive market responses. So depending on what is reported, we're going to see a corresponding move either to the upside or to the downside. And you can see right now, the inflation report year over year is supposed to come in hotter at 3.1% versus 2.9% last time. The month over month rate is going to be 0.4, which will be in alignment with what came in. So we'll see what happens there and whether or not that is going to have an impact on the market. And in terms of earnings, I talked about it at the start of the show. We are really paying attention to 2 major reports. The first one being on Tuesday, and that's going to be Netflix, who will report at market close. If you remember, the last time they reported, they did gap down, and they've just been chopping sideways and consolidating since then. So we're looking to see what type of move we get from Netflix. Do they finally break out of this period of just moving sideways and make a new all-time high? That will be one to watch because it will impact the broader markets. And then Wednesday, we get another huge report, and that is going to be Tesla. They will report at close as well if they've made any progress with the rollout that they've done in Austin, Texas, and how close we are to getting to that self-driving feature. And also, we're looking for how they're doing with their Optimus robots, if they're close to production. So those are 2 reports that we're going to want to pay attention to coming this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. And so now let's jump into the charts. We're going to begin by looking at the broader markets, the SPX. And what we can see here is we've really just been trading inside of this big bearish engulfing candle that we printed. And what is unique about Friday's candle is we printed an inside candle. So we see that there is pressure building here. And in fact, if you come over to the weekly, you're seeing the same thing. That's a spinning top candle indecision. And so we are going to get a move this week. It's coming. So just prepare. And whether or not that's a move to the downside or a breakout to the upside to new all-time highs, we don't know yet, but we have to monitor these big earnings reports, the data that's going to be released on Friday, because that's going to give us our tells in terms of where we're going to be headed. When you jump over to the QQQ, same concept here, inside candle on the daily. And if you come over to the weekly, same thing, inside candle. So pressure is building. We did see an uptick in volume here on the Qs on the weekly chart, and on the daily chart, you also saw an uptick there as well. So pay attention to that. Again, this correction that we had here, if you want to even call it that, the dip from all-time highs to the bottom of that bearish engulfing candle, 3.18%, not a lot. But if we follow the 1995 blueprint that we looked at a few weeks ago here on the channel, there weren't major pullbacks outside of over 3%, a little under 4%. So maybe this is it before heading up higher. And this line that I have here on my chart, It's one path possibly we can take, that if we move higher at the start of the week and then fade lower, come down and correct. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, because when you consider not just Netflix and Tesla earnings this week, but also the following week, when you get Amazon, you get Apple, you get Meta, you're going to have some positive reports there that can drive the market higher. So more than likely, if we do get any kind of weakness, it should be overshadowed by the positive earnings reports. So we just want to pay attention to that. But again, the big thing that we want to watch on Friday is what happens with CPI. Coming over to IWM, we could see that we actually made a new all-time high this week, despite all the volatility. But after that new all-time high came in, we printed another big, massive bearish engulfing candle. And then we got a spinning top candle that came in on Friday. So there is some indecision here right now, but notice that there's an uptick in the bullish volume. And coming over to the Dow Jones Industrial, inside candle, just like the SPX and the Qs. And if you come over to the weekly, almost an inside candle, that lower wick, we made actually a newer low below that bearish engulfing. So almost inside, but again, big bullish volume came in as well. And just coming over to take a look at the VIX to show you what I was talking about here. We saw the fear start to come out of the market because Trump did make comments about him backing off of those tariffs. He doesn't see the 100% tariffs being a reality. So that gave some peace of mind to investors and traders. And there are also conversations and talks that are going to begin this week. So we'll see if we get some progress out of that. And then also taking a look at the 10-year, we could see that as people are buying up bonds, if we go over here to look at TLT, you can see we're pushing higher. That drives the yield lower because people are looking for that flight to safety. So we want to continue to monitor this. Remember, whenever the 10-year yield drops, that is positive for mortgage rates. And more than likely, the final week of October, when the Fed meets, we're going to see another rate cut. So just something to keep an eye on. Things look positioned for a move higher, and potentially the volatility that we had 2 Fridays ago and last week could be it for a minor dip and we start to push higher. However, keep in mind that seasonality during October, this period of time, is weak, and we typically don't see a bottom until the end of the month. So what I'm really watching is to see if this VIX continues to drop lower. And what does it do whenever we hit that 200 simple moving average on the daily? Does it find a bounce there, or does it cut through it? Let's just hop over here to Bitcoin. You can see that Bitcoin currently is up 1,600 points. It was up 2,000 points at one point today. And we are back above that 200 simple moving average on the daily. But there could be a little bit more weakness to go here on Bitcoin, and I have this trend line drawn here. I want to see if we can come down and retest this and potentially grab some liquidity, or if we come down even further to this area here that I have drawn out, that would take us to, from all-time highs down to the bottom here, 30%. That would be bear territory, but I don't think it will get there. I think it's more likely if we get some weakness, we'll come down and test a supportive trend line and then begin to move higher. So just keep that in mind. And then also too, gold was just ripping the last couple of weeks. And you could see we made a new all-time high here on Friday, but selling started to come in. So you have to wonder if we're going to see a rotation out of gold into Bitcoin and other equities. So just keep an eye on that. And let's just start going through the big boys here. We'll start with Tesla. We can see that we've really just been range bound here on the daily chart after we did push up and make a recent high 477.75, drop back down. But really, we've just been in a range after this big push after the announcement that Elon Musk bought shares of Tesla. And notice that we have this thick volume here on the VRVP. Earnings are coming Wednesday. Are we set up for a push higher to retest this 470 area? Do we get above it? Do we make a new all-time high? Remember, we hit the 487 mark back in December. Can we take that out? Can Tesla hit 500? Absolutely it can. We did see a little bit of a spike in the bullish volume there. We're not overbought, so Tesla could potentially be set up for a move higher. So let's keep an eye on Tesla. Let's take a look at Apple here. I have this trend line drawn from whenever we started to push on August 6th. We tested it back here September 11th. We came back down and tested it on that big bearish candle off of the Trump-China tariff news, and we've just been consolidating on it, but we got a nice push on Friday. Let's see if Apple wants to start to go this week. Amazon is another one. So just as we were talking about Apple not that long ago, not participating in the rally, Amazon is just kind of chilling out here at the 200. And let's see if it wants to drop a little bit lower and move sideways here ahead of earnings, which will be on October 30th, the day before Halloween. And if that is a catalyst for this to push higher, and you could see that it's been below the 200 before. This was a unique area here because this was the Liberation Day and all the craziness with the tariffs. If we come over here, this was the flash crash of August 24. It didn't stay down there for too long. So even if we do dip below that 200 a little bit more, it's not going to stay down there for an extended period of time. Amazon could be one of those laggards that eventually gets in line and participates. Google quietly made a new all-time high despite all the volatility this week, and it's getting prepared to announce earnings on the 29th. For me, this one has ran. The reward to the upside isn't there just from a technical perspective, but that doesn't mean that it can't continue to run. You do have this gap down below here at 212.38 that we'll watch to see if that ever gets filled. More than likely not, because things are so strong. And then you have Meta that did come down and fill its earnings gap and has really just been consolidating in that area. And like Amazon, it's been a bit of a laggard here. Your bears will say, hey, you got a head and shoulders here. This thing's coming lower, which it can. You really aren't supported by any moving averages here. You have this thick volume node where the current price action is, but if it breaks below that, it can come down and test the 200. But my guess is we don't see that with earnings on board. And the fact that this is really down on the RSI, it could be setting up for a pop as well. So keep an eye on Meta. Microsoft, really, after that all-time high, dropped down below the 50. It's been consolidating. The 100 is creeping up. Maybe we'll get a test of that 100, but they too have earnings coming up next week. So this one, we'll see. More than likely not. They're going to have to cool some of these off, but Microsoft really has just been moving sideways. Netflix, here we go. So we could take a look at Netflix and what has been transpiring here. We could see that the last time that they reported earnings, we had a gap down followed by more weakness, nearly hit the 100, came up and retested that 50, dropped back down below it, pushed up above it again, nearly came down to the 200 here, which is where I wanted to buy call options. It didn't come to my level, so I didn't do anything with it. But now we're really just in an interesting area to see what is it going to do here. Are we going to gap out of this? And typically, whenever Netflix reports in the fall, they have strong responses to their earnings report. So if it's a positive one, we see good forward guidance, good profit, then this one could be a runner this week. And then taking a look at Meta, a lot of these charts look the same. After hitting all-time highs, sideways compression, broke above, up to 195.82, came back down, is now sitting on that 50 SMA daily, right on those thick VRVP nodes. Can it drop lower? Sure it can. But we do have the 100 here. Test that 100, and then let's see what happens there if we get a bounce. And remember, they're going to cool some of these big boys off, rotate into other names. Let's see if they cool NVIDIA off, and then rotate into Amazon and Meta. And then taking a look at Broadcom, still hanging in here strong. Announced a partnership with OpenAI this week. We do have this gap to fill down here at 308.82. Can it fill that gap before running higher? With as strong as AI and chip stocks have been, more than likely that's not going to be the case, but just keep an eye on that 50. If it comes down here, that could be an opportunity to take it long. Let's just take a look at some other tickers here. We have Palantir is sitting right above that 50 simple day moving average. There is thin volume here on the VRVP. So if it would break down below 172, 171, below that 50, then it could move pretty quickly down here to the 100. They are going to be reporting earnings as well on November 3rd. So keep an eye on what happens here with Palantir. And notice that the last time that it hit that 50, it moved sideways, consolidated before moving higher, or again, just kind of accumulating in that area or not overbought. So Palantir could be setting up. Hims had that great move this week up to $65, but then bang, the bears came in, dropped it, big bearish engulfing candle. But notice this, and this is what I'm watching here. The last time we came down and tested the 200, we ran higher. The most recent time we tested the 200, what happened? We ran higher. Are we going to come down and test that 200 again? If we do, I will be a buyer of shares here, or maybe even leaps. So keep an eye on HIMS and potentially what can happen there, because that chart is setting up very nicely. A few others I want to take a look at. Roblox, because this is one that I have leaps on long term. They continue to break records in terms of concurrent users, and that is going to show up in its earnings report. There's no question about it. And right now, what we're seeing here, we made a new all-time high, immediately got rejected. You can see how big that candle is. You had a lot of profit taking there. And then it dropped, found support off the 50, pushed back up, dropped down below the 50. And you could see that the bear volume is waning, it's weakening. A new recent high, dropped down, and really just consolidated before it started on that massive run. So watch for Roblox on earnings. They're going to report on the 30th if we get a gap up and start of the next leg higher on this company. The trade desk. I still like the trade desk very much. It's been down here before, made these lows at 43.27. We actually retested those lows. And right now we're stuck on that 50. We got rejected at $54. And you can see the last time that it broke above that 50-day simple moving average here is when it really started to push, and the 100 served as a resistance. So what we have to watch here is for the trade desk to get above that 50-day simple moving average. And then from there, it's going to have room up here to the 100 at 63.80. And if it can get above that, you have the 200 there at 71.41. And if it can get above all those, then it could really start pushing. And it has done that in the past. So I am still in the trade desk long. Again, this one's going to take time. You're going to have to be patient with it. I would like to see us come down and get oversold again, drop down, retest those lows, and then start its move. This chart reminds me a lot of UNH, and I want to see if it's going to follow suit there. Roku is a chart that I'm watching because every time that it gets into this box here, it typically gets rejected and it forms a new trend line, which then it starts to climb out. And so being that it got rejected here, let's see if this is a new trend line that's been established and we create a little bit of a push. So I'm going to watch Roku for day trades this week to see what happens. They are going to be reporting the same day as Roblox, Thursday, October 30th. Now let's just take a look at a couple more. We have SoundHound that actually broke above this upper resistance trend line. It got to a recent high of 22.14. Remember, its high is 24.96. Let's see if this one wants to come down and retest the bottom of the supportive trend line, this channel that we have drawn out here before getting a bounce. That would be at 16.38, or a more closer support would be around 17.64. You have three thick volume nodes here. If it breaks through those, you could see that that lines up with that trend line. So there could be an opportunity on SoundHound if it does come a little bit lower. Let's take a look at Boeing here. So Boeing's just kind of been chopping along sideways. It can't break above that 50. It tried here on the 9th. It got rejected, as did everything that day, but it's been holding pretty steady here along the point of control on the VRVP. Let's see if this thing could get moving. They're going to be reporting earnings on the 29th. AMD continues to hold strength from that big gap up that they had here, actually pushing higher, looking very strong. And I don't know if this gap will be filled anytime soon on AMD because it's really just been pushing. Taking a look at Robinhood. So nice double top that came in here, new all-time highs. The double top played out. We nearly came down to the 50. It looks like it is ready for a move higher. This lines up with the nice volume node here. It almost lines up with that 50. So it could be a nice bouncing spot, one that I'll be watching. Robinhood is going to hit 200 sooner rather than later. MU just continues to push despite all the volatility, making new all-time highs, still hanging up here in rarefied air. It actually hit 2,654 this week, so that has been very strong. And let's see, a couple more here, and we're going to wrap this up. Beam, ticker symbol BEEM, is a chart that I really like because when you zoom out, you could see that it has created this nice inverted head and shoulders pattern. The last few times that it's hit the 50, we've got a nice push, hit the 50 here, and now we're back down to that 50. Plus we had a golden cross that occurred here. You got the push higher, retest, push higher, retest. So this one could be setting up, and we have nice support here on the VRVP. So I'm going to take a flyer on this one on a swing trade. because it is so cheap. Typically, I don't trade penny stocks, but I do like the opportunity that this one presents just sheerly from a technical perspective. And I believe that is all that I want to look at here on the charts for today. I'm just checking to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And that's going to do it. So I appreciate you guys joining me here for this market review preview. I'll be back in the saddle this week after being sick. I appreciate your patience while I was on the mend. But let me know, which tickers are you watching this week? What sort of plays do you have set up? Any swing trade ideas? Let me know in the comments below. My gratitude to you guys. We're almost at 1,100 subscribers organically. I appreciate that so much. And as always, make it a great day and honor the moment. I'll see you back here for the next video.